Hey everyone, so we finished our quilt top. How about if we work on finishing our quilt? Hi everyone, Cristin here, and oh boy, we finished our outer borders with those cute stars showing you how to get them just right every time. And that means that our entire quilt top is all done. How exciting, right? So the last part is pretty big. We have the backing and the binding, the embellishments, and a quilt label still to do. I'm going to see about maybe doing it all in one video. I may break it up into two. So for now, I'm just going to talk about the backing and the binding. So the backing, you got to choose a backing. I think it was a separate purchase, if I recall. I'm pretty sure from our sponsor. But they had several available that you could choose from. So I chose this one with the pretty design on it. And if I recall, we need, let me see, it says in here, we need 1.5 yards of fabric. So whatever fabric you choose for your backing, you need 1.5 yards of fabric. So there's a few things to talk about on this for the backing. I don't stabilize my backing fabric. You can. Some do. They choose to do that so that when they stitch in the ditch, it might lay a little bit better. That's totally up to you. The other thing is a common question that I get is, do I put another layer of batting on when I'm adding on the backing and doing my stitch in the ditch? I do not. So it's totally up to you. You do you, and some people feel that it hangs better if it has another extra layer of batting. The way that I look at it is every block, every border, everything is totally stabilized and totally filled with batting. And it's hard enough to do stitch in the ditch. It's easy. I'm not saying it's a difficult thing. It's very easy to do. But wrangling in an extra layer of batting is not my personal preference. So if you are a pro at stitching in the ditch and you think it helps it to hang better, by all means, add another layer of batting. Absolutely, totally your choice. One thing I do want to point out though, don't forget we're doing fairy lights on this quilt. So that's another layer that the fairy lights need to go through also. So personally, I would not recommend it, but again, you do you. I don't add another layer of batting, but you absolutely can. All right, so 1.5 yards of backing. There aren't directions in this book as far as how to add the backing and exactly what size you need and all of that, but it doesn't matter because you need to do it based on your quilt anyway. So my quilt measures 40 by 40. I just measured it, and really it doesn't matter because the way I always do stitch in the ditch is I lay my backing fabric down right side down, and then I lay my quilt top right side up on top of that, and then I just go from there. I start pinning from there. So that's the way I do it. I always leave an inch or two of extra fabric around the side just in case it pulls at all while I'm doing the stitch in the ditch. But you don't need any real specifics. You don't want a piece of fabric that's exactly 40 by 40 or whatever your quilt size is. You want it a little bit bigger, and then just start pinning. So I always tell you when I'm doing the stitch in the ditch, get good pins. Let me grab mine. They're right here. So I use Dritz pins. I will add a link up here for them. If you're going to be doing quilts for a while, get good pins. They're not a big expense and they make a huge difference. They really make it easier. So I start pinning, and I pin every single block, and I try to avoid the applique pieces. I'll show you more in that in photos when we get there. But you do want your good pins. I have the larger size, and then I have some of the smaller size as well. And those are for any smaller filler blocks or for your inner borders, whatever works for you. But mostly I use these bigger ones. All right, so put a pin in each block, and then you start from the center of your quilt and work your way out. So I always start around the center block, and I just do all the way around. I stitch all the way around, and then I take out that pin, and I know that that block is done, and then I continue on to the next block. Now, I've had questions, do you go over that the connecting line again, the connecting stitch from the 2 blocks? Do I stitch that again? No, I don't. All right, I go around it without doing that extra one again, and then I tie it off and go to the next one. If I feel like I'm making a lot of progress and it's laying well and it's easy to do, I'll go further. I'll do a couple more rather than just 1 block at a time. I'll do a few. Like if there's 3 filler blocks next to each other, I'll do around all 3 of those, and then I'll do the center divide afterwards. So whatever works for you, but starting from the center and working your way out works the best. All right, so that is for our backing. I think I got everything, 1.5 yards of fabric, whatever fabric you choose, and I'll add more information in the photos. Oh, invisible thread, you definitely want invisible thread. So when you are doing your stitch in the ditch, let me grab my thread. All right, sorry about that. So my 2 favorites are Gutermann. I really like the Gutermann one, and I also use Sulky. Both of these work great, and I will add links underneath the video. I'll add a link also for one of them up here. These 2 work really well. I have tried others, and some of them I'm not a big fan of. There's one that I ordered a couple years ago, and it came, and it was literally this huge spool, like huge. And it's basically like fishing line, and I didn't like it. So Sulky and Gutermann I feel are really good ones. And so the invisible thread, that is for when we are stitching in the ditch, so that you don't have to worry about having it be exactly perfect. All right, don't worry, nobody's going to sit there and inspect. Did you get it right in the stitch, right in the ditch there? Did you stitch it perfectly? Sorry about that sound. In the ditch, you're not going to have to worry about that. So the other thing is I use my Brother Move It foot, and then I have the stitch in the ditch. Let's see, where is it? There it is, the little attachment, the little foot. So see that little black thing in the center there? It makes it so that it kind of opens up your fabrics so that you can stitch in the ditch really well. This works super well. I really like this. If you don't have a Brother or Baby Lock machine, you probably have a walking foot that's a little different but similar. Either one, whatever works for you. So this is what I use, and it works super well, and especially with this foot attachment. Sorry, we seem to be dropping a lot of things in the household today and making loud sounds and scaring our dogs. So sorry about that. Anyway, it's so funny. Whenever I say, hey, I'm going to film now, that's when all the loud sounds come. Oh boy. Anyway, trying my best, I promise. So stitch in the ditch foot if you have it, good pins, invisible thread, and then we're all set to do our backing to do the stitch in the ditch. One thing I forgot to mention is for your bobbin thread, you could use one that matches your backing fabric. So I could use a white or a light blue, or even something kind of wild, because there's lots of colors on this. So totally up to you. If you're using like a plain blue background, then you could make a bobbin thread that matches that. That would work really well. You can use your plain white. It's going to hang on a wall. Who's going to notice? But totally up to you. Generally, I try to use one that is going to match my backing fabric a little bit. So just one small little tip. One other little tip. So this is our last opportunity to make sure our fairy lights are cut well. So I am going to use my awl, and I'm also going to use some sharp tip scissors, and I'm just going to poke through each of these little holes one more time before I add my backing, just to make sure that they are that they're nice, good holes. All right, so all of these little holes throughout the quilt that we will do the fairy lights, I am going to just check each one before I add my backing on. Small little tip. All right, after we do our backing, then it is time to do the binding. So the binding, we want 1/3 of a yard of fabric for your binding. And I have this red with white dots on it. And I haven't done anything to it yet. I'm going to iron it out and take out the seams. And this is going to be interesting, actually. Looks like I used a little bit of it. Anyway, so 1/3 of a yard, and we're going to cut this into 5 strips that are 2 1/4 inches. Usually it's 2 1/2, so this says 2 1/4, and then times width of fabric. 5 strips. So mine's going to be interesting because I must have used some of mine. That's interesting. So I just saw that I've got this other piece. I bet I was supposed to use this for whatever I cut it from. That's funny. Anyway, 5 strips, 2 1/4 inches times width of fabric for your binding strips. Now, I don't stabilize my binding strips. I don't recommend stabilizing it because actually it makes it a little bit harder to make those mitered corners. It can be done. I have stabilized mine on one of the cuties, the cuties table toppers that we were working on. I did stabilize that 1 month and it was fine. Not a huge big deal, but it's a little bit harder to fold those mitered corners. So if you haven't already, don't stabilize your binding fabric. All right, 5 strips at 2 1/4 times width of fabric, and a total of 1/3 of a yard for our binding strips. All right, and I'll show you how I do it. I do my binding a little bit different. I actually create a pocket and I start from the back and bring it over to the front. I'll show you all of that in photos. Some people like to hand stitch their binding. Go for it. I'm personally not a fan of doing it myself, so I use the machine to do that. Whatever works for you, but let's go ahead and get started. So how are you doing with your goal? We're almost done with this project and this goal. So mine was building strength, and yesterday my husband and I went to a new place for a hike, and it was really interesting. So you look at it and it's really intimidating. Like, you get to this park and there's this hill, I'll share photos, but this monster hill with dirt, and you're just looking at it going, okay, I'm just gonna fall backwards and break all my bones, and like, it's really pretty intimidating. And then once you get past the dirt part, there's stairs that look pretty steep and fun, and I enjoyed that. I was really looking forward to the stairs part, but not so much the dirt part. So we got up at, thankfully, without any broken bones or anything, and it was great. But then you get to the top and there's several different places to go for trails. But the weird thing is, we did almost all of them. I think we did all but one, and they were not very long. They went, all of them went to someone's house. It was the weirdest thing. They didn't like loop around a mountain or anything. They just kind of go, and it was an interesting hike. But then you finish and you arrive at someone's like backyard, and you have to turn around and go back and then try another one, and that one did the same thing. It was very odd to me. I thought it was very odd. But there, at one point, we're looking down the hill and we saw this area that we had been in before, and so I think it somehow connects to this other hiking area that we've been to before. So that would be cool, because those were lots of hikes, but there was only one that we didn't go down, and so that must have been the one that actually connects to things, because all the other ones did not. But the interesting thing was, like I said, it goes to someone's house and then you have to turn around and go back. So you end up back at the top of that hill, that big dirt hill, and I'm like, I don't want to go down that dirt hill. I mean, going up was hard enough, but going down, there's no way we're going to have enough traction to not fall. So I was really concerned. I'm on this cancer blocker pill and my bones are brittle, and I have to be really careful not to break anything. And so I was really concerned. So my husband was so great. He said, it's okay, we can do this. I'll be right in front of you. So he stood right in front of me, and we just went really slowly down this hill. And it really was pretty scary, to tell you the truth. But anyway, we did make it down, no broken bones. There were even some kids running down the hill. More power to them, right? So anyway, it was a really good hike, but interesting hike, I should say. We only had like 300 or 400 feet of climbing and not much distance. It wasn't my favorite, but I think that it was probably user error, and I think that we just didn't figure out our way around. I think that there were probably more options, so we'll have to try it again or talk to some locals that know more about it. But anyway, we got our hike in, so that was good. And today I'm hoping for a bike ride for a little bit in between our project. And my shirt today, embroidered shirt, do what makes you happy. I love this one. I made this shirt right before my friend Cristin and I went to Utah to go to the International Quilt Festival. I think that's what it was called. But I got to go visit Kimberbell, and I got to visit my girlfriend's quilt shop and meet Kim and Chris and their whole team, and that was so exciting. So I made this for that trip. So it's a really fun design. I will try to remember who it was from. Oh, you know what? I'm pretty sure it was Designs by Juju. I'm almost certain it was Designs by Juju. So I will add a link under this video with information if you decide to make your own happy shirt.